stand for a moment of quiet reflection or prayer as you wish. As we are about to take counsel together on matters concerning this county, we should seek to faithfully discharge our duties of office, both in our debate and in our decisions, and promote the health, safety and well-being of those we serve. Thank you. Fellow councillors, officers and members of the public, including those listening in via the webcast, welcome to our council meeting this evening. We are not expecting a fire drill. Therefore, in the event of a fire alarm, please leave the chamber by the nearest exit and assemble at the rear of the council car park. Before we get onto the agenda, I would like to inform members that I've decided to exercise my discretion under Procedure Rule 20(2) to vary the order of business on the agenda this evening. Specifically, once we have concluded items 1 to 9 of the agenda as usual, I will take the motion on care experience at item 14A, then proceed to item 19 on the Catmor Sports contract. At the conclusion of that item, we will then take the rest of the agenda in the original order as it appears on the agenda. I'd also like to make it clear what is taking place on item 19. This is one of the most difficult decisions we've had to make this session, and we need to make sure we make the right decision for Rutland. Council is being asked to make a decision on the contract for the public leisure services at Catmor Sports Centre. A debate and a decision on the contract is expected to take place in private session because it relates to a live procurement exercise and will require the disclosure of commercially sensitive financial information. But in the interests of transparency and democratic accountability, I am minded to have part of item 19 in public to allow members to refer to the public documents in the pack at appendices A and C, but not Appendix B or the supplementary update, and they must not give any indication of how they may be minded to vote. This will not preclude them from speaking once more in the exempt session. Confirmation of the decision reached by councillors tonight can only be made after bidders have been notified about the outcome of the procurement, and the council hopes to confirm details of its final decision within a week of this meeting taking place. As with all council meetings, this is open to the public. However, this is not a meeting for the public. Any disruption of the meeting or attempts to interrupt those speaking will not be tolerated. Finally, I'd also like to remind members to stand and ensure your microphone is switched on, and please speak clearly into it. When voting, please ensure your hand is fully raised and wait until voting is confirmed before lowering it. Okay, thank you. And now onto the agenda. Number 1 is apologies. Do we have any apologies this evening, Mr. Delaney?
None received, Chairman.
Okay, therefore council is voting to 27 this evening. Item 2, Chairman's announcements. Since the last ordinary meeting of the council, either myself or the Vice Chairman have attended the following civic engagements: planting of the King's Coronation Tree in Ketton, installation of the Right Reverend Debbie Sellin as Bishop of Peterborough at Peterborough Cathedral, and I was the guest speaker at Ketton Talks at Ketton Congregational Hall. Item 3, announcements from the leader, members of the cabinet or head of paid service. I'll invite the leader to address the council.
Thank you. I have provided. Thank you, Chairman. I have provided Democratic Services with a list of my activities for the last month, which will be appended to the minutes, I believe. I'm getting a nod. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Waller. Do any other members of Cabinet wish to speak? Nope. Okay, thank you. Item 4, declarations of interests. Do we have any declarations of interest this evening? Mr. Carr.
Yes, I know it's not a requirement, but for purposes of transparency, I would like to declare that I am a member of Catmor Gym.
Okay, any other members? Okay, thank you. Item 5, minutes of the previous meeting. We have before us the minutes of the meeting held on the 26th February. Do we have a proposer that the minutes be approved as an accurate record? Councillor West. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Smith. All those in favour of the minutes being approved, please raise your hand.
(26) Chairman, with 1 abstention for a member not present.
Okay, and an abstention from Councillor Harvey. So the minutes are therefore approved. Item 6, petitions, deputations and questions from members of the public. No petitions, deputations or questions have been received. Item 7, questions from members of the council. I think, Mr. Delaney, no questions have been received from members of the council. Item 8, referral of committee decisions to the council. There are no referrals for consideration this evening. Item 9, call-in of decisions from Cabinet meetings during the period from 26th February to 25th of March. There are no call-ins for consideration this evening. So at this point, I will vary the order of the agenda in accordance with Procedure Rule 20(2) of the Council's Constitution. We will first take the motion on care experience at item 14A, and then take item 19 on the Catmore Sports contract. And at the conclusion of that item, we will take the rest of the agenda in the original order as published. So item 14A is making care experience a protected characteristic. Councillor Smith, can you please introduce the motion and propose it?
Thank you, Chair. I'm very pleased to bring this motion to the Council. Care as a protected characteristic. I would ask you to reflect for a moment. What comes to your mind when the interview on the radio says, "We're now going to discuss this issue with Professor so-and-so"? I was aware a bit ago that the image that came to my mind was a white man. It's an example of stereotypical thinking, oversimplified, widely held idea of a typical type of person. It can, of course, be much worse, as indirect prejudice leading to hostility taking various forms, and this is quite rightly legislated for in the 2010 Equality Act. The idea of care as a protected characteristic was first put forward by Terry Galloway, a local county councillor. He was brought up in care and suffered significant prejudice. I was made aware of the issue at one of our corporate parent board meeting by the head of Children's Social Services. The motion you have before you summarises very well the reasons as to why care should be a protected characteristic. Earlier this year, I met 3 of our care leavers, and they told me their experiences. How people had fixed ideas about them, regarded them as being damaged, troublemakers. One of them said because of it they couldn't get a job. And there are many barriers for care leavers, and it leads to rather disquieting outcomes. 50% of the prison population under 21 have spent some time in the care system. 38% are not employed, in education or in training. They have difficulty getting housed. They have much reduced numbers in entering higher education. 13% against 43% if in care continuously for 12 months. I recently attended the Virtual School Annual Conference. The first speaker was Fatima Whitbread, the Olympian javelin thrower. I think it'll be the only time I get an Olympic medal around my neck. She was in care for some 14 years, and it was humbling to hear of her experiences of a child growing up in a children's home. She was fortunate enough to have 2 people who saw her potential. One of them was a javelin coach, and she adopted Fatima when Fatima was 14 years old. In her talk, she did mention that care leavers, because of their experience, are resilient, and that's, a positive thing for when they come to be employed. But at the same time, they have vulnerabilities. they don't have the network of family and friends that we all, I hope, all have. There are now around 57 local authorities who have passed this motion. It will not be a law, so what is the point? I believe that, as with other issues such as race and sexuality, perceptions can change, as they certainly have done in my lifetime. I think it would be particularly useful to engage with our local employers. I know one local authority that has the meeting between care leavers and local employers. The meeting was run by the care leavers. I gather it was a great success. And if passed, we could do the same, perhaps involving our virtual school, as it is very much involved with giving support to children looked after and our care leavers. But let's start with ourselves. We are all corporate parents, and remember that if children and young people have been in our care, we are their corporate parents until they are 25. I mentioned the barrier that care leavers have, but it doesn't have to be like that. The reason for adopting this motion is stated in the motion. I just want to read the bit out. If adopted, ensures that supporting care experienced individuals is not an add-on, but a fundamental aspect of policy development and decision making. The approach guarantees that policies are developed with equity in mind, ensuring that care experienced individuals have the support and opportunities they need to thrive. It is important that right from when children come into our care, we do all we possibly can to reduce those barriers and help our care leavers into adulthood. And please, this evening, we do have a care leaver with us, and as part of our care leavers pathway is now employed by Rutland County Council. So I hope you can support this motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Johnson, do you wish to speak as the seconder of this motion?
I'll just say something very quickly, Chair. I became physically disabled 14 years ago, and what I suddenly recognised was the insidious nature of discrimination. And so I became really aware of it. My mental capacities were not affected, but people assumed they were. And I've seen lists where I'm on a short list, and as soon as I walk in the room, there's a cross by my name. So I decided to retire was my response to that. But I think this sort of discrimination is exactly the same. People make up their minds, and they shouldn't do. And the people affected should be helped through this, because if they're not, we're ignoring a vast amount of skill that exists in the population. So that's why I'm seconding the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Before I open the debate, I would like to invite Hope Stead to address the council. As mentioned by Councillor Smith, Hope is a care leaver, and she's here to speak to us regarding her experiences and why this motion is important to people with care experience. So, Hope, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. As a care experienced person myself, I know my experiences will have a lifelong impact on me. Being care experienced is something that I discuss with my children, my friends, and my colleagues. The experiences we have are something that will never leave us, and we shouldn't be discriminated against or face stigma for acquiring protection as children. To make care experience a protected characteristic, you are giving care experienced people a voice. It will provide a safe space for us to spark important conversations, sharing knowledge and empowering us and our experiences. It ensures and enables you to keep your promise and responsibility as corporate parents to care for these children like your own. It provides an opportunity for lifelong commitment to equality for care experienced people. It is important that independence is encouraged with young people leaving care, but this provides an opportunity for you as corporate parents to ensure that we don't face prejudice and discrimination throughout our journeys to independence and our adult lives. Making care experience a protected characteristic ensures care experienced people can feel more confident that we will be treated equally. It gives me confidence that employers will be more knowledgeable and won't feel they shouldn't hire us because we might have lots of time off due to previous trauma, or that housing associations and landlords won't discriminate against care leavers, associating them with antisocial behaviour and feeling less inclined to provide adequate housing. You have an opportunity to provide equality for us. Please use this opportunity to support us. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Hope, for that, and thank you for taking the time to address us. And I'm sure all the other members of Council will join me in welcoming you to Rutland County Council, and we wish you all the best in your role. Members, now open to debate. Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Chairman. As you know, I am the Children in Care champion for Rutland, and I really welcome this proposal. Like my fellow councillor, last week I had the absolute pleasure and privilege of listening to Fatima Whitbread's story and experience. Fatima is on a mission to improve this system through her own foundation called Fatima's Foundation. I feel this proposal is an important step in the right direction and actually builds on what Hope has quite wonderfully explained to us. It can serve as an important example for other Rutland businesses and organisations, and I hope that they decide to follow suit. I do have a small plea though, which builds on what was been set out in the proposal, that if approved, it is implemented at the earliest opportunity and isn't as some tokenistic gesture. We need to make a difference, and by putting the policy into action, then we will be doing what we feel is not only right for the here and now, but also for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Other members? Councillor West.
Go on then, Chairman. I'll say something. Hope I met you first when we had a presentation put on by Children's Services, which hit me right here. I was so deeply impressed, members, by what I saw that evening, and the fact that there could be some sort of unconscious bias, which we hear so much about today in the professional world, is so wrong, that we must protect this characteristic and well, not that we can legislate, but that we should as a body do what we can to make sure that care leavers are not discriminated against in any way at all. I couldn't think of anything more disgusting than discriminating against the wonderful group of people that I saw down here a month or so ago at the presentation evening. It was absolutely staggering, and I don't think I've ever been more impressed in I don't know how many years. So I will be backing this motion, and I'd encourage everybody else to do the same.
Councillor West. Other members? Councillor Hemsley.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think it's a sad sign of the times when we have to have a motion like this. But like Councillor West, I was at that event and I was very touched by what I heard by the people there and the sort of passion that they have. So I'm hoping that if we do pass this motion, that the Council will support us as members to be able to get behind it. I'm happy with my role as involved with the businesses to support it across the county as best I can, because I think it's critical that we get it done. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hemsley. Any other members? Would you like to sum up, Councillor Smith? Or?
Thank Hope for her words. Tracy, Councillor Carr for her words. Councillor Johnson for seconding and backing it up. I just recommend the motion to the Council. Thank you.
Okay, so the motion is that Council A agrees to support and treat care experience as if it were a protected characteristic in law, to join the many other local authorities who have already done so, and B, requests that the leader lobby national government to have this enshrined in law so that there is an equity for all care experienced people. All those in favour, please raise your hand.
That's unanimous, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. The motion is approved. Now we move to item 19. This is report number 26/2024. As I've previously outlined, Appendix B to this report contains exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A. This is information that cannot be disclosed. In order for Council to hold a full and unfettered debate on a matter and make a decision, we are advised to exclude the press and public. Having said that, if any member wishes to make a statement on this item without referring to anything in the exempt Appendix B, I will allow that before we go into exempt session, and I will allow them to speak again once more in the exempt session. So to be clear, a member can refer to Appendices A and C, but not Appendix B or the supplementary update to the motion. Members must not indicate on how they may vote. If any member is in any doubt that they may stray into the exempt appendix, then they should wait until we go into private session before speaking. Are members clear on that? Okay. Does anyone wish to?
Chairman, the item must be proposed and seconded in order to give it validity.
So how can we propose it when it's got an exempt item in it?
Let's call on the proposer.
Okay. Okay. We've got to propose the.
This was a matter that I advised.
We've got to propose the motion first. Councillor Waller.
I'm not quite sure what I'm proposing, because normally I would speak, but there's nothing in those public pages that I could say that wouldn't indicate which. Oh, I do beg your pardon. I wasn't totally prepared for this, Chairman.
If you propose the item in general terms, Councillor Waller, then I think we can proceed.
I propose the item in general terms. I propose that we move to discuss report number 26/2024.
Do we have a seconder? Johnson. Okay, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. What I want to say is, whilst there is no statutory requirement to provide sports and leisure services, the evidence and data for the benefits of physical activity are compelling. Physical activity is one of our 5 ways to well-being, and it can help us to live longer in better health. And whilst we are living longer, we are doing so in poorer health, and some of this is preventable. A government report in 2022 called Applying Oral Health indicated that physical activity can reduce dementia by up to 30%, reduce hip fractures by up to 68%, reduces cardiovascular disease by up to 35%, can reduce type 2 diabetes by up to 40%, reduces colon cancer by 30% and breast cancer by 20%. And what I also want to talk to you about is one of the biggest causes of death at home for those that are over 65 is either falling down or falling over. Now, according to the Office of Health Improvement and Disparities, we are an ageing population, and this is no different in Rutland. In fact, Rutland have a higher rate of people over 65 than the England average. And also, according to this data, Rutland does have a higher than England average of reported musculoskeletal issues. Now, musculoskeletal, or MSK as we call it, is an umbrella term for hip, knee, back, neck issues, those types of things. And we also know that MSK is the second most common reason for absences from work. 28.2 million days are lost per year to MSK issues. The number one reason is mental health. With an ageing population comes an ageing workforce, and regardless of what political party you are aligned to, they all agree that we need to grow the economy, and to do this we need a healthy workforce. Physical activity is also good for social connections, and evidence from the National Institute of Aging suggests that isolation is as bad for our health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It can also shorten our lifespan by 15 years. Now, in June 2023, Sport England published a report that advocates the benefits of physical activity. And within this report, it also highlighted the return of investment. So for every £1 spent on sport and physical activity, we can see, or should see, a return of £3.91 of social and economic value. Now, I work in the drug and alcohol sector, and the return on investment is for every pound that is spent, it equates to £4 in savings, and we regard this as pretty good. So what you will see is this is roughly on the same par. I think what I am trying to say, and what I'm going to conclude with, is we cannot underestimate the value of physical activity and its benefits. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Carr. Councillor Stevenson, then Councillor Powell.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm going to start by making two really blindingly obvious points. Residents are passionate about the Catmos Sports Centre. I know this from when the decision taken in January 23 was published, from the letters, the emails, the social media posts, and perhaps on a very personal level, the urge to have a public meeting where members of the public could share their views and ask questions. This evening, and I am very mindful of what you have said, Chair, we are asked to approve recommendations or not in the exempt paper. This is a really complex and difficult decision. I feel particularly sorry for Oakham councillors. We're relatively fresh from an election. Pledges, promises are fresh in residents' minds, and I think it is a very difficult decision for all of us to take. There may be a conflict between listening to residents and, of course, party loyalty. I'm mindful, Chair, of what you have said about not referencing what the decision is or indeed giving an opinion. What I'm about to do is raise issues which I think are key, pertinent issues which we need to consider. The first one is the process in which this decision has been taken. The fact that it is, as very clearly explained, in private session as it was in January. And I'm going to quote the Liberal Democrat press release because I think it captures things very well. Residents are fed up with decisions being made behind closed doors. I hope this evening, having heard an excellent explanation from the Chair, residents will be reassured that we have no choice but to take that decision and exempt, just as was the case in January. I move on and I think, sorry, Councillor Carr, you've done a far better job than me. I think there is a key issue around what a council provides in terms of just delivering statutory requirement whilst balancing the other considerations, positive impacts on health and well-being, community groups, and actually I think something that's really pertinent for Rutland. We are in a rural context. Access to service and amenities isn't that of our urban counterparts. Our transport system, and I think we do an incredibly good job in difficult circumstances, means that particularly for our young people who may not be able to drive, accessing leisure, we absolutely need to be considering that in the exempt session. The other context is the same for any local authority. It is that of funding for local government, balancing books, living within means, protecting our most vulnerable. I don't think anybody would disagree that that is a key issue in this decision. I will now reference 2.3.9 in the public facing paper. It's very clear there. It says, if there is to be ongoing financial support for the provision additional savings or service reductions beyond the 4.5 million already approved in the budget need to be made. It is reasonable, therefore, to suggest that the current administration has not allowed for the possibility of proposals requiring ongoing support. Again, we will need to consider that net zero position. That was the intention of the contract in 2009. It changed with the pandemic, as did an awful lot of life. Again, a deliberation perhaps for exempt session. I will conclude now, Chair. It is a really, really complex issue. It is a single issue that actually highlights the challenges faced by local governments and by default all of us having to make horrible, difficult, challenging decisions. However, we are the custodians of democracy. It is through our comments, our statements, our press releases and our debate that we can demonstrate that we have listened to residents, taking on board very valid points made. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Stevenson. Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Chair. And I also be very careful not to stray into any exempt items. It is a difficult decision for all of us councillors, and has already been stated for lots of reasons in terms of our priorities as a council, our response to residents and our budget, bottom line. It's not just about costs, it's about all those things, and we've got a very difficult decision to make. I would just like to point out a couple of omissions on the timeline on Appendix A, if I may, on page 148. Firstly, the Cabinet decision on 14th of February 2023 authorised an extension of the Stevenage leisure contract for up to 24 months and the undertaking of a new procurement exercise which would not discount alternative bids with some financial risk. That's stated. There is a phrase missing from this statement of the decision, and I quote, in order, that procurement exercise, in order to enable the development and implementation of a new model for future provision. Secondly, in that timeline, there was also a Cabinet meeting on the 15th of August 2023, which is not included in the timeline, and this considered the outcome of the initial tender stage. That is all in the public papers. At this meeting, Cabinet decided to proceed to stage 2 of the procurement of a leisure operator, noting that the contract award will be a decision of Council or Cabinet, depending on value, and also quoted in line with the Council's contract procedure rules. So just a few sort of things that I found a bit puzzling about this process. Back in August, there was indication of the initial tender. It went to stage 2, but it seems to me that there was a bit of a lack of clarity on the overall strategy and principles at that stage about the issues involved. And the second thing is that the previous Cabinet decision was to enable development and implementation of a new model. What was actually done before going into the next stage of procurement? The current contract was extended to March 2025, so plenty of time to do proper diligence on exploring other options and procurement conditions. The second tender, as it states in the timeline, actually closed on the 3rd of November. That is nearly 5 months ago. There was ample chance to have discussions around the budget, but the budget has been set, as it states in the paper, on a net nil revenue position. Why on earth would this current meeting not held before that budget meeting in order to address this? It's obviously right that this decision comes straight to Council, but there has been no recommendation from Cabinet. So it's down for all of us councillors to consider all the issues. But there has been ample time to relook at the model. There has been ample time to be open about the approach on providing sub-services. But it's down to us as all councillors in the exempt session to have a full discussion about it. Councillor Johnson last month at the budget meeting said a few words, and one of them, which is timid, does come to my mind. Thank you.
Councillor Powell. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Chair. There are 4 contextual points that I would like to make. Firstly, the original intent of this council in 2005 was the creation of a sports and leisure centre, and there was no mention at that time of a new academy, which only arose in July 2006. Under the big build of 2007, the principle of a community centre including a new school, was established, and the school was only one part of that centre. The community centre opened to the public in 2009. The second point I want to make is about the impact of academisation in April 2011, with the transfer of all land and non-school building, in other words, community assets, to the new Catmos Academy Trust by the government. Successive Rutland MPs did nothing to secure restitution for Rutland residents for the loss of those assets, and later academisations in England did not entail the loss of community assets as legislation was changed to ensure their retention. Thirdly, there is the true availability and accessibility of alternatives, which has been highlighted to us by our constituents, some of whom have physical and mental health issues. They highlighted the ease of access to Catmos and the availability of group classes. They also highlighted that the alternative gyms list is not up to date, and many of these are heavily subscribed. All constituents highlighted the role of Catmos as a community centre, a meeting place. One had recently been referred by his GP to Uppingham School Sports Centre rather than Catmos, but does not drive and now finds accessibility difficult, being dependent as he is on buses. And that finally brings me to our neighbour, Melton, as an object lesson for us, where I have learnt that they have recently renewed the management contract for their sports facility. And they are in a slightly different position from us, but they are investing 1.75 million, comprising part self-funding and part borrowing. Critically, they own the assets. And over the 10 years of that this facility will be managed, they expect to gain £1 million over that period. We, in contrast, lost our assets. In conclusion, we now have the obscene situation of residents being granted increased access to the facilities of our private schools, while assets intended and paid for by this community have been captured progressively by an academy trust. All this whilst our MPs have remained silent and RCC takes the blame. Thank you.
Councillor Ross. Councillor McRobb.
Thank you, Chair. I wrote some of what I intend to say here without taking full consideration of the division between the open session and the exempt session.
Well, you need to be very careful in what you're going to say then, Councillor McRobb. I
intend to be very careful, but I thought it was best if I say that before I spoke. I want to speak about risk assessment. And I believe that I can discuss this in general terms as long as I don't describe any of the detail of what I have read in the exempt papers. Am I correct in this?
You can't refer to anything in the exempt papers at all. If you are going to do anything like that, you need to reserve your speech to the exempt session.
Then I will not refer to anything in the exempt papers, but I will speak about risk assessment in general as a process that all businesses and authorities undertake when they're making decisions of this kind. Good risk assessment involves a series of measurements that include the type of harm that may occur if a particular decision is taken or not taken. It includes the likelihood that that harm will occur. It includes an assessment of the severity of the harm, and it includes identification of strategies that may either avoid or mitigate that harm. It appears to me that there are two routes that the council can take when assessing risk. We can assess risk to the council, or we can assess risk to our residents, who will be the ultimate beneficiaries or sufferers of our decisions. I think I conclude my statement by saying that I hope that the council will, in its later deliberations, take full account of both of those targets of risk, both the council and also the residents that we represent. For there are different risks to each of those groups with different severities and different mitigations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McRobb. I will now, from the chair, move that we go into exempt session. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Harvey. All those in favour?
I believe that is unanimous, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. The motion is approved. For the benefit of the public, the council hopes to be able to make an announcement on the decision within a week of this meeting. So the meeting will now be suspended for a short time while the public and press are excluded. The council hopes to be able to announce the outcome of tonight's decision within a week. We will now return to the original order of the agenda as published. Item 10, report from Cabinet. There are no reports from Cabinet this evening. Item 11, reports from committees of the Council. No reports from committees this evening. Item 12, reports from Scrutiny. We have one report from Scrutiny circulated in the agenda supplement, which provides views of the committee on agenda item 16, following the reviews of the matter at the meeting of the committee in February. Councillor Ross, do you wish to speak?
Just one. Thank you, Chair. Yes, just on one point. I'd like to give some explanation around point 1 in that report, which relates to the changed application for funding procedure. And the committee states that the take-up by applicants of the online forms process should be closely monitored as from April 2024. And I just want to explain the reasons for that statement. We recognised that there are a number of alternatives that will be available to applicants as part of the review, although these were not detailed in the paper tabled, but were explained by officers in the meeting. We consider that given the significance of this change for many of our older residents, both the use of alternatives and the rate of take-up of the online service require to be closely monitored to ensure a seamless transition. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Unless there's any questions, that can be taken as received and noted. Okay, item 13, joint arrangements and external organisations. No reports have been received. Item 14, notices of motion. We've already considered 14A, so therefore we proceed to the second motion on Rutland Farming. Councillor Clifton, if you can
Thank you very much,
and
Mr. Chairman.
propose your motion, please.
Do you want me to read out the motion?
Yes, you can read it out if you like.
Or I don't have to, if that's easy.
Yeah, well, it is on the record. Given the time, we've
Thanks
all
very
read
much,
it.
Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure to speak under your chairmanship, and doubly so in consideration of the motion before us now. It is a motion designed to show proudly, publicly and unambiguously and with absolute sincerity that this council stands foursquare behind our farmers, growers and our food and drink industry here in Rutland. Sometimes public statements of support matter, and this is one of them. We need to pass this motion for our own self-interest as a county, as a country, for our environment, for our countryside and for our own food security. After all, in the final analysis, we are what we eat and drink, and this is a matter of huge importance. I'm not a farmer, but it is a source of great delight to me personally and a huge advantage for our county council that we have historically been well served by our Rutland farmers, and this thankfully continues today, both of yourself, Mr. Chairman, and Councillor West. I, along with Councillor Johnson, are proud to represent a corner of Rutland with an extremely rich farming heritage. Rutland's farmers, growers and food and drink sectors play a key role in the life of our county. Around 15,000 people every summer get a snippet of that at the Rutland County Show. Farmers are the custodians of our countryside. They create new habitats, protect wildlife, produce the raw ingredients that feed us and export food around the world. They host farm visits for children. It is a 7-day-a-week profession and a labour of love across many generations. Rutland's farmers and growers cover everything from arable farming to sheep, egg, pig, poultry and cattle production. And all of this meat and dairy production rightly takes place under some of the most stringent welfare regulations in the world. Our county is also known for its fruit and vegetable production, We know that the freshest, most sustainable and best produce is both local and seasonal. And what a magnificent food and drink sector we have in Rutland. It feels remiss to name one and not another, so I will not, but we all know just how good their products are. And we justly celebrate and enjoy them, perhaps without thinking all year round. They provide employment and security and contribute greatly to our society here in Rutland. The government rightly want to reward farmers for doing more to help improve the environment while also producing high quality food. However, the farming industry needs more certainty to both survive and thrive. Clarity is vital, and it needs to be financially remunerative. If we can send a message of support and assistance, let us do so. There have been significant cost inflations across sectors in recent years, largely caused by the Russian invasion of Ukraine, as well as our farmers facing the challenge of moving to new regulatory changes, as we have moved from the CAP to the new system set out in the Agriculture Act 2020. And I'd like to bring on the matter of food security. There are a few topics less considered but more important than our food security. Twice in just over the past 100 years, this country has found itself staring into the abyss of national caused by a dependence on the import of food from overseas. Men and women bravely died transporting foodstuffs across the oceans to feed us. Dig for victory was no empty slogan. The same threat was clearly seen in the Cold War. Policy makers did respond. Our self-sufficiency in all food types reached a high of 78% in 1984. This had fallen to 62% in 2010, and it was 60% in 2022. Maintaining this level is now a government aspiration, but we need to make sure and play our part in keeping this minimum level. Sadly, if international events take their worst course, we could find ourselves frantically trying to feed ourselves from our own resources. We must support our farmers, growers, and food and drink industries here in Rutland to help keep Britain fed and our nation secure. I believe that there is much in this motion for all members to support, much in little, we might even say. Some of the proposals are symbolic, some aspirational, and some practical. And I very much hope that you will join with me in supporting this motion and sending out a clear message to our beloved county's farmers, growers, and food and drink industries. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clifton. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Stevenson. It's now open to debate. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Chair. I think all members will agree with the general sentiments of Councillor Clifton's motion, but I wonder what RCC can practically do beyond warm words to support our farming sector. Our MP continues to assert that the trade deals concluded with Australia and New Zealand by the then Trade Minister Liz Truss create opportunities for British farmers without specifying what these might be. Contrast this with former Agricultural Secretary George Eustace, who has since publicly stated that they will be very bad indeed for sheep and cattle farmers. Secondly, government has refused to establish a food strategy within which domestic farmers can plan their investments, committing only to periodic reviews for the industry. Lastly, and directly related to food security, the financial support schemes introduced by government presently prioritise environmental schemes over food production. It is inevitable that these will result in increased consolidation of land holdings and loss of employment in farming and those supporting businesses. My suggestion to Councillor Clifton is that he should first speak with his MP. Thank you.
Councillor Ross. Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Ross. You underscore why we absolutely should be supporting this motion, regardless of our party politics. This council publicly acknowledging its support of farmers sends a very, very clear message to government. I'll make a very simple statement. No farmers, no food. Currently, or at least on the way to council chamber this evening, I was interested to hear on the radio the traffic news. 100 tractors are heading from Westminster to Parliament Square, and I whooped. It's time we stood up and we were counted for our farmers. Farmers are getting an absolute battering, and enough is enough. If we want, and I appreciate the local plan is in draft, Our farmers are also custodians of our land. They're custodians of our food security. And this, I completely agree. You could argue, oh, well, it's nice, sort of nice words, but let's start somewhere. And the other good news by supporting this, it also supports what is in our economic strategy that was passed on the 12th of March. A local food destination through restaurants, street stalls and markets, farm shops and online retail, page 85. That feels as though that this is absolutely supporting that economic strategy. Small sustainable farms, although it would have been nice to have a definition of what small was, which contribute to UK food security and are part of regional and national supply chains. We have an opportunity, all members, not just Cabinet, all members, to pull something out that we are proud of. Protect, restore and enhance our nature, environment and habitats. We have an opportunity, all members, to say, actually, we are proud of our farmers. We know their potential. We know that food security is serious. I would absolutely urge you to support this motion because it is a start of a very, very clear message. No farmers, no food. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. I was down to be at that tractor rally in Westminster tonight, but I had a more pressing matter, so I didn't go. Any more members? Councillor Edwards. Councillor West.
I don't think there's anything that any of us could disagree with in this. It makes sense. I just don't understand the point of A and B are just... I don't know how you actually tick that off in a box. You can't say, how did we do that? How did we commit to enhancing partnerships? How did we recognise the contribution? What do we do? Give them a clap on a Thursday? I don't know. It's just that the first two, C and D, are something that you can actually tick a box and say, yes, that's a thing that we know how we can do it. But I'm not entirely sure how you want us to do A and B. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor West.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Stevenson, we are custodians of the land, yes, please. And I do my bit, we do in our family. We're not big farmers, we're not small, but we're not enormous. And we sit wedged between two enormous estates. And I see us, I feel that we do more environmentally than some of the estates do. We plant more trees, we restore more hedgerows. I see large estates that don't feel they have the time to plant trees or restore hedgerows. So it's easy to be portrayed as a custodian of the countryside, but at the same time, farmers are often portrayed as villains by members of the public, and that's quite difficult for us because, take for example, neonicotinoid sprays, which were banned, the bee-killing pesticides that we all hear about in the press so much, and I'm not particularly enamoured by bee-killing pesticides, but it is but one targeted application to a seed as a seed treatment, which has now, in its absence, replaced by several less targeted applications of nastier chemicals which aren't banned, and that is a mere arbitrary fact that those the pyrethroids which we apply as insecticides on Orsia rape now aren't banned. But if I look at today's figures from the AHDB about the current state of British farming, wheat, and this is largely this year weather related, but farming can't respond to anything in 1 year. Wheat acreage is down 15% from 1,720,000 hectares to 1,450. Winter barley is down 22%. Spring barley is up 29%, but that nothing like makes up the 22% drop in winter barley. Oilseed rape is down 28%. Response to the issues of establishment. Pulses are down 14%, and there's a very rosy picture of potatoes, sugar beets and maize, which are not big crops in this country. They are up 5%. But fallow land is up 79%, from 311,000 hectares to nearly 600,000 hectares. Now, this is down to the policymakers that Councillor Clifton's mentioned, who do respond But you cannot respond to food security through policy very quickly at all. We're talking decades here. 600,000 hectares of fallow land has come about through government's changes to the support for farming, which largely through the Sustainable Farming Incentive, the SFI, which is the brainchild of ministers and officials in Whitehall, whose closest relationship to farming has been put on a pair of wellies every now and again for a photo shoot. And what it leaves is it leaves landowners, a lot of whom are not farming, in a position where they think, hang on a minute, I don't need a tenant farmer. I can just put all of this into a 2-year legume fallow, and I can take £600 a hectare for it, and I've got to do sod all. And if I look to my notes, you'll bear with me, members. 1/3 of, I shouldn't have had to look that up, should I? But 1/3 of farmland in England is tenanted and can be terminated at any time. And that doesn't leave farmers in a particularly safe or sustainable position, knowing that at any moment you could lose tenancy on all, some, part of your farm. So the mental health picture in farming is pretty diabolical. Suicide rates are 20% higher than the national average. And why would we grow wheat or barley when we could grow solar panels and we could take index-linked payments on them, on the returns from them? And we don't get that from wheat, we don't get that from barley, we don't get that from cattle or sheep, we don't get it from potatoes. Cattle and sheep are buoyant at the moment, and they have been for a year or so. I don't know where they'll be in 5 years, and maybe they'll be down, maybe wheat will be back up again. But we cannot respond quickly in agriculture, and I find that saddening. The food security at the heart of this motion is a big challenge, and it's hard to see a situation where our food security is going as a result of policy regarding agriculture in this country at the moment. We have signed deals to import food from elsewhere in the world, a lot of which...
Can you sum up now, Councillor West?
I can do my best, Mr Chairman. Yeah, a lot of which is produced to poorer standards than we work to ourselves. But if food security is at the heart of this, Councillor Clifton, then I would be happy to...
Councillor West, thank you. We need now to extend the meeting. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Stevenson, seconder. Oh, sorry, Councillor Harvey. So the meeting is extended for 15 minutes. Oh, do we have to vote on that? Yes. Oh, sorry. We need to vote on that. So all those in favour? I'm taking over.
26, Chairman.
Against? Abstentions? Where's the other person?
I did see a member not raise their hand.
27 then. Okay, so the meeting is extended for 15 minutes. Any other members? No, good. So, Councillor Clifton.
Thank you very much, Mr Chairman. Yes, thank you very much, Councillor West. I absolutely agreed. I heard what you said, and I thought we need somebody like you down in Whitehall having a word in DEFRA, because you're absolutely spot on in so many of the points you make. And I'd just like to say, yeah, I agree with you. Councillor Edwards. I did actually jot down some ideas for what we could do further on your point, which is that, if you just bear with me as I wade through my copious notes I've made. I thought that there is a body called Business Lincolnshire who have agriculture and horticulture work. That's funded by the government. There is also, it covers Greater Lincolnshire, but also the county of Rutland. And they also advertise that you can apply for UK government funding for agricultural growth zones. So obviously, I don't know to what extent this council is actually engaging with Lincolnshire County Council, probably, and that body, Business Lincolnshire, to actually look at ways that greater funding could be engaged with. I did, in a moment of fancy, wonder, could we have a special Rutland mark for producers? But I thought that's probably not going to work. But and Councillor Ross, your points. Well, I would actually like to say, and you know, I'm not a political individual, certainly not in this chamber because I don't have the votes to succeed in anything. But I would just like to, if I could, graciously point out that our MP's actually been pretty assiduous in sticking up for food, for rural producers, for the food and drink industries. She's the chair of the Dairy APPG. She's got 2 other agricultural APPG, which is all part of the parliamentary groups, that she's very involved with. And if you follow her on the internet, I think you'll find that you would be hard pressed.
Councillor Clifton.
Sorry, yes.
Because we're getting very short of time.
I would just sum up.
I think you have summed up enough now. So the council is asked to approve the motion as set out on page 13 of the agenda. All those in favour, please raise your hand.
Thank you. 26, Chairman.
All those against? Abstentions? That's okay. So the motion is approved. Item 15, to resolve that annual meeting of council 2024 be moved from 13th to 20th of May 2024. Councillor Waller, can you propose the motion, please?
Sorry, I propose the motion that we move annual council.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Harvey. The motion is that council resolves to move annual meeting for 2024 from 13th to 20th of May. All those in favour?
Thank you. Unanimous, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Item 16, review the charging port care and support policy report number 20/2024. Councillor Ellison, can you introduce the report and propose motion, please?
Chair, we can have the short version or the more detailed version.
I think the short version would be preferable.
Beautifully written paper, answers your questions to Councillor Ross, fully endorse it, and can we go with it, please?
We have a seconder, please. Councillor Wise, open to debate. Yes, I am reminded that these are still important decisions that we do need to debate. Councillor Hemsley.
Thank you, Chair. I was reading through the papers, and it's just really sort of more of an observation. I note that in 10.3.6, the person will be required to obtain a valuation if this is unrealistic or lower than expected, the council may engage the valuation officer. Is this a reasonable expectation of a member of staff to do this?
Okay, other members? Oh, sorry, Councillor Waller.
I'd just like to say that the bit I found most interesting in this report was the comments from those who were consulted on it while it was in draft form. I think they were thoughtful and thought-provoking, and clearly there is a lot of public support for this move. Any changes, well, we have to wait and see whether they have the impact that we want. But when I heard a resident say that when they went through this, filling in the forms, they had to employ a carer to look after their person they were caring for in order to give them days to fill the original forms in, and they've looked at what's proposed and it's so much easier, then that made my heart lift a bit, I have to say. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waller. Any other members? Councillor Ellison, would you like to reply?
Yeah, I think the point of the valuation of the house, that is for an expert. So whether or not we would probably have to employ somebody to actually take it into consideration. But the light touch, I think, is the best thing of this. It's reducing staffing time, reducing costs, saving money, which I think we all need to be aware of. We are aware that, particularly for those who can't get online, there is alternatives. There is face-to-face. We will go around to their houses. It will be much more personal, but most people have said they'll have a go at online. The other points that were made in scrutiny were to, and that we should actually put the details in. I think the details are in there about face-to-face and if you look at 2.2.3.1, the various different methods, telephone and face-to-face, is listed. So I think it's there. And then the last point was exceptional circumstances. Yes, I think we need to clarify that, and I do agree. But we will be monitoring uptake and any comments back. But I think it's a really, really sensible piece of work.
Thank you, Councillor Ellison. The motion is that Council approves the recommendations as set out in section 1.2 of report number 24/2024. All those in favour, please raise your hand.
Thank you, Chairman. That's unanimous.
Okay, thank you. The motion is approved. Item 17, Peterborough Shared Service Agreement for Regulatory Services, report number 22/2024. Councillor Wise, can you introduce the report and propose a motion, please?
Thank you. I'm not quite sure of the order. Do I propose that we accept this, or do I talk about it first?
You need to propose a motion. You can talk about it briefly if you wish.
I propose that we accept the recommendation in 1.2. I apologise, my computer is refusing to play tonight. We have a shared service agreement with Peterborough City Council. They provide services for us, including food safety, health and safety, housing enforcement, pollution control, licensing and trading standards. They have been providing this service for us since 2011 with 2 5-year contracts and then a 3-year extension. We have a good working relationship with them, and I think we've all seen cases where they've done some excellent work for us. It's a very effective service. Peterborough City Council have recently conducted a review and found basically they were delivering more than we were paying for. They actually want us to start paying what we're having now, and I don't think that's unreasonable. A major issue has been the increased work linked to taxi licensing, where they need extra staff resource. We have agreed that on top of inflation, because we will be able to charge additional fees to recoup the cost of that extra staffing resource. The one change in this contract, which has helped keep the cost lower, is that where there were additional costs when Peterborough got in external legal advice from the renewal, if you decide to go with it, that legal advice will be provided in-house by our own council staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wise. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ellison. Okay, members open to debate. Any members wish to speak? Yes, Councillor Powell and Councillor Wilby.
Thank you. Yes, fully understand all that's in the papers. There's several references to excellent working relationships, excellent services, etc. Obviously, from the sort of floor as a member representing residents, what I tend to hear about is things where it hasn't been excellent service. And I'd really just like to ask a bit more about, you know, the assurance that how well we're managing this SLA, what targets and who's actually keeping an eye to make sure that that is excellent service for residents. I hear about delays in replying to queries and various things. So I would like some more information and assurance on that quality of the service provided. Thank you.
Councillor Wilby no longer wants to speak. Any other members? Councillor Hemsley.
Thank you. Just sort of following on from Councillor Powell, there have been occasions when things have been raised with me about them being slow and retarded, and it's obviously important that we have something that's in there that checks it. So us as an organisation, but also a response from them, because one of the responses actually took a long time to come back, and there was a complaint, and it almost lost somebody some business. So, well, you know, I just want to make sure we stay on it, please.
Any other members? The motion is that Council approves the recommendations set out in section 1.2 of the report number 22/2024. All those in favour, please raise your hands.
Thank you. That's unanimous, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Motion is carried. We need to extend the meeting for possibly another 15 minutes. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Stevenson, Councillor Karen Payne is second. All those in favour?
Unanimous, Chairman.
Okay, the meeting is further extended. Item 18, Pay Policy Statement 2024-25. This is report number 23/2024. Councillor Johnson, can you introduce the report and propose a motion, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I won't take long to introduce this because I know we're tight on time. This is the annual publication of our pay policy as required by the Localism Act. So it's essentially a piece of housekeeping, and I hope members are generally familiar with the policy itself. The core components are outlined in the policy document, mainly Appendix A. The components remain unchanged from previous years, and therefore existing provisions remain in place. Members are asked to approve this policy at Appendix A. There was a further item about noting the progress of negotiations this year. I think the explanation in the paper is sufficient. Negotiations are ongoing and representations are taking place, and the National Employers Representation will be progressing the matter. I should point out that there is an apparent duplication of the Adult and Social Care Director in Appendix 3 and Appendix 4, and this is because at the 1st of April last year we had 2 officers in post doing a handover from one to the other. So national employers will be meeting in mid-April and again in May to consider feedback from the regional briefings, which start tomorrow, and develop a response to pay claims. I would like to move that the recommendations in 1.2 in the paper are approved by Council.
Councillor Johnson, do you have a seconder? Councillor Waller, thank you. Members open to debate. Okay, in that case, the motion is that Council approves the recommendations as set out in section 1.2 of report number 23/2024. All those in favour, please raise your hand.
Thank you, Chairman. That's unanimous.
Okay, the motion is approved. Item 19, any urgent business? I've not been made aware of any urgent business for consideration. And the next meeting of Council is annual Council, which is now agreed to be on Monday, the 20th of May. I would remind members that the decision we've made tonight is entirely confidential and must not be discussed outside. That concludes the meeting of the business tonight. Thank you, members. And I close the meeting at 9:43.